I never told my daughter how much I earned. Not because it was a secret, but because it never mattered. At least, not to me. For over 3 decades, I worked as a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm outside Cleveland. My annual salary hovered around $60,000. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. I lived in a modest two-bedroom home, drove an aging Toyota that never failed me, and kept my life simple. No designer labels, no flashy vacations, just quiet comfort. My daughter, Rachel, never asked about my finances, and I never volunteered the information. Money had always been a strange topic between us, unspoken, avoided. When she married Evan 3 years ago, I assumed nothing would change. Evan worked in sales. He loved expensive watches, luxury restaurants, and talking loudly about big deals. At family gatherings, he dominated every conversation. I smiled, nodded, and focused on Rachel. She seemed happy, or at least she wanted to look that way. That was enough for me. The first request came 6 months ago. "Mom," Rachel said over the phone, her voice tight, "could you help us with the down payment? Just $5,000. Evan's commission got delayed." I transferred the money the next morning. No hesitation. Mothers don't interrogate their children in moments of stress. Then came another call. $3,000 for car repairs, $2,000 for medical bills, $1,500 for a home emergency. Each time I sent the money. Each time I told myself not to judge. But I noticed things. New golf clubs leaning against their garage wall, designer bags on Rachel's arm, photos of expensive dinners posted online. None of it matched the desperation in her voice, but I stayed quiet. Love can make you blind. Last month, they invited me to dinner. Their house stunned me. Huge, immaculate, far too large for two people. I arrived with a homemade apple pie, feeling slightly out of place among the marble floors and oversized furniture. Evan greeted me with a tight smile and a glance at my car. "Still driving that old thing?" he said, half laughing. During dinner, he talked endlessly about a luxury sale he was about to close and a possible vacation to Cancun. Rachel barely touched her food. Her shoulders were tense, her smile forced. Then Evan leaned back in his chair, wine glass in hand, and looked directly at me. "Margaret," he said, "we've been worried about you." I paused. Worried? "Your financial situation," he continued. "Living alone, small house, old car. We know money must be tight." Rachel shifted uncomfortably. "Evan!" "No," he interrupted. "Someone needs to be honest." He turned back to me. "Frankly, it's embarrassing. Rebecca deserves better than having a poor mother. It reflects badly on us." The words hit like ice water. I looked at my daughter, waiting, hoping she'd defend me. She didn't. She stared at her plate, silent. Something inside me hardened. I folded my napkin carefully, placed it beside my untouched food, and stood up. "Where are you going?" Rachel asked. "Home," I said calmly. Evan smirked. "Running away won't change your situation." I didn't respond. I walked out, dignity intact, heart heavy. That night, I didn't cry. Instead, I opened my laptop. And what I found in my bank records would change everything I thought I knew about my daughter and myself. I thought the humiliation at dinner was the worst betrayal. I was wrong. What I discovered next was far more devastating. I sat alone in my home office, the house unnaturally quiet. The antique clock on my desk ticked loudly, each second stretching longer than the last. I opened my laptop, not out of panic, but habit. 32 years as a financial analyst had trained my mind to look for patterns when something felt wrong. I started with my savings account. At first, everything looked normal. Years of careful planning stared back at me. Retirement funds, diversified investments, a modest but healthy portfolio. Nearly $850,000, built slowly, patiently. My house was paid off. My pension would start next year. By all appearances, I was far from poor. Then I scrolled. 3 weeks earlier, $2,200 withdrawn. Description, transfer R. Morrison. My stomach tightened. 2 months earlier, $3,500. 4 months earlier, $1,800. Same label, same access point. I hadn't authorized any of it. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled up a spreadsheet. Analyst mode took over, cold, precise, relentless. Unauthorized withdrawals, $7,500. Money I had willingly sent them, $15,500. Total, $23,000. $23,000 taken by my own child and the man who had just humiliated me for being poor. The realization didn't come with rage, it came with clarity, sharp and unforgiving. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. I remembered Rachel sitting beside me 2 years ago, helping me set up online banking just in case. I had trusted her completely, trusted her with passwords, with access, with me. I checked the account permissions. Her name was still listed as a joint user. Emergency access, they'd called it. An emergency she had apparently been creating herself. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Mom, I'm sorry about tonight. Evan was stressed. Can we talk tomorrow?" No apology, no mention of money, just excuses. I turned the phone face down. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was betrayal, systematic, calculated, and cruel. They had taken from me quietly, then mocked me publicly for no having enough. I changed every password that night, removed her access, set up alerts for every transaction. If they tried again, I'd know immediately. Then I checked something else, the trust fund. When Rachel turned 21, I had quietly set up a trust in her name using a small inheritance from my father. Over the years, I added to it whenever I could. I rarely mentioned it, but she knew it existed. Balance, $127,000. Untouched. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last. If she hadn't taken from it yet, is it because she didn't know how, or because she was saving it for later? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I documented everything, screenshots, dates, amounts, access logs. I printed copies and organized them into a folder, the way I used to prepare reports for corporate audits. By morning, I knew what I had to do. On Monday, I walked into a small law office 3 blocks from my house. The sign read, Hendricks and Cole, Family and Financial Law. The attorney, James Hendricks, listened without interrupting as I laid out the documents. "These withdrawals," he said slowly, "appear unauthorized. This could qualify as financial exploitation." "She's my daughter," I replied quietly. He nodded. "That doesn't change the law, but it does complicate emotions. What are my options?" "We can pursue a formal demand letter, request full repayment. If they refuse, we escalate." "And criminal charges? That's a road most parents don't want to take." I thought about Evan's smirk, Rachel's silence. I want my money back, and I want them to know I know. The letter went out the next day. By Thursday, my phone exploded. Rachel, Evan, messages, missed calls, accusations, pleas. And then came the knock at my door. They weren't prepared for what I'd already set in motion. They thought silence meant weakness. They were about to learn the difference between patience and surrender. By Thursday afternoon, the messages stopped sounding confused and started sounding angry. Rachel's texts shifted from, "Mom, please talk to me," to, "You're blowing this out of proportion." Evan's were worse, accusatory, sharp, and carefully worded, as if he already believed he was on the winning side. Then they showed up. I watched them through the lace curtain by my front window. Rachel stood with her arms folded tightly around herself, eyes red. Evan paced behind her, jaw clenched, glancing at my door like it owed him something. I didn't open it. Rachel knocked softly at first. "Mom, please, we just want to talk." Evan tried the doorbell, then knocking harder. "Margaret, this is ridiculous," he called. "You can't hide forever." I sat on my couch, heart steady, hands calm. For the first time in weeks, fear wasn't in control. Clarity was. After 20 minutes, they left. Evan turned once at the end of the driveway and looked straight at my window. His expression wasn't regret, it was fury. That night, Rachel sent a long message. She admitted she had accessed my account a few times, but only because they were desperate. Evan's commissions were late. The mortgage was heavy. She said she was going to pay me back. Eventually. She ended the message with this: "You always said family helps family." There was no acknowledgement of theft, no apology, just justification. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. The next morning, he called. "They've retained counsel." My stomach tightened. "They're claiming the money was gifted. They're also suggesting you gave your daughter access to your accounts because you were struggling to manage your finances." I laughed. Once. Sharp. Humorless. "That's a common tactic," he continued. "They're also threatening to pursue guardianship." The word hit harder than anything else so far. Guardianship meant control of my money, my home, my life. "That's an intimidation move," he assured me. "But it tells us something important." "What?" "They're scared." Saturday morning, Evan called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered before thinking better of it. "Margaret," he said calmly, "you're making a huge mistake. I stole from me. We borrowed, and you knew. For emergencies, not to fund a lifestyle while calling me an embarrassment." Silence. Then his voice softened. "I said things I shouldn't have. I was stressed." "You never apologized." "I am now," he said quickly. "Let's sit down. We'll figure out a repayment plan. But you have to drop the legal threat. People are starting to talk." There it was. Reputation, not remorse. "And if I don't?" I asked. His tone hardened instantly. "Then we fight, and people will believe you're confused, lonely, unstable. You're 63, Margaret. Judges don't like risk." The line went dead. That was the first time I felt real fear. That afternoon, they returned, this time with Evan's mother. She knocked gently. "Margaret, please, families shouldn't handle things like this." Rachel sobbed openly. "Mom, I'm sorry. Please, this is destroying me." I wanted to open the door. The instinct was primal. Then I noticed Evan's hand on Rachel's shoulder, guiding, pressing, controlling. She glanced at him before crying harder. It was a performance. I stayed inside. That night, I packed a small bag and checked into a hotel across town. Not because I was running, but because I needed space to think without intimidation echoing through my walls. By the third day, fear had burned itself out. What remained was resolve. When I returned home, gifts waited on my porch. Chocolates, flowers, cards filled with carefully chosen words about forgiveness and starting over. I threw them all away. Then came the letter, handwritten, emotional, apologetic. Rachel claimed Evan's income had been cut dramatically. She'd promised to repay everything. She begged to talk, just the two of us. It was well written, convincing. Too convincing. I photographed it and sent it to my lawyer. His reply was immediate. "They're building a narrative. Don't respond." That night, I realized something crucial. They weren't trying to fix what they broke. They were trying to control the story. And they weren't done yet. I thought the worst thing they could do was steal from me. I hadn't yet seen how far they were willing to go to protect themselves. By Monday morning, the situation had shifted from emotional to strategic. My lawyer advised me to prepare for escalation. When people realize manipulation isn't working, he said, they either back down or they attack harder. I took his advice seriously. I called 5 people who had known me for years: a former supervisor, my physician, a longtime neighbor, a close friend from work, and my pastor. I explained the situation plainly. No dramatics, just facts. Every single one offered immediate support. Letters were written, statements prepared. If anyone dared to question my competence, I would be ready. 2 nights later, the doorbell rang. Rachel stood alone on my porch. She looked smaller than I remembered. No flashy clothes, no jewelry. Her eyes were swollen, exhausted. "Mom," she whispered, "I came alone. Evan doesn't know I'm here. Please, 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let her in. We sat across from each other in the living room, the air heavy with everything unspoken. I didn't offer tea. This wasn't a visit. It was a reckoning. "I was wrong," she said quickly, "about everything. I should have defended you. I should never have touched your account. I let things get out of control." "Did Evan's income really drop the way you said?" I asked. She hesitated, looked away. "Not that much." "So you lied?" "I exaggerated," she corrected weakly. "We're drowning, Mom. The mortgage alone is over $4,000 a month. Credit cards are maxed. We're pretending everything's fine, but it's not." Part of me wanted to reach across the table and hold her hand. That instinct still lived inside me. But then I noticed her purse. New, designer, expensive. "Is that new?" I asked quietly. Her fingers tightened around the strap. "No, well, Evan bought it last week." "For today?" I pressed. She went still. He said you'd take me more seriously if I looked put together." Something inside me went cold. I stood and walked to the window. Evan's car was parked down the street, engine running. I turned back to her. "Get out." Her face crumpled. "Mom, please." This was planned. The tears, the apologies, the purse. He's waiting to see if this worked. "It wasn't like that," she insisted. "Then why is he here?" She had no answer. "You didn't come to be honest. You came to manipulate me. Again." Anger flashed across her face. "What did you expect us to do? You shut us out. You brought lawyers into this." "You stole from me," I said calmly. "You let your husband humiliate me. You threatened to take control of my life." She stood abruptly. "You've changed. You're cold. You'd rather be right than have a family." I met her gaze without flinching. I became cold when my daughter chose appearances over integrity. Silence fell between us. "Leave," I said. She hesitated, torn for just a second. Then she turned toward the door. "You'll regret this," she said bitterly, "when you're alone." The door closed behind her. My phone buzzed moments later. A text from my lawyer. "We proceed. Lawsuit filed Friday." I didn't hesitate. The papers were filed. Formal, precise, unavoidable. I sued for the full amount, plus legal fees. The bank records were airtight. The unauthorized withdrawals were undeniable. 10 days before the deposition, my doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't Rachel. It was a woman in a tailored suit holding a briefcase. "Mrs. Morrison," she said, "I represent Evan's mother." That was when everything truly unraveled. She laid the documents away table. Debt. Massive debt. Hidden debt. 17 credit cards, nearly maxed. Loans stacked on loans. And worse, embezzlement. Small amounts taken from Evan's company, over months, carefully hidden. "His employer has involved law enforcement," she said quietly. "An arrest is imminent." The room felt suddenly very still. She slid one final document forward. A settlement offer. Full repayment, legal fees included. In exchange, I would drop my case. I agreed. On one condition. I said, "They don't know, not until after." She nodded. "That can be arranged." When she left, I sat alone at my table. Evan had spent months calling me poor. Now everything he built was about to collapse. 3 days later, I sat across from them at the deposition, and that's when the police walked in. The deposition room was silent, except for the faint clicking of the court reporter's keyboard. Rachel sat across from me, pale and shaking. Evan looked confident. Too confident, leaning back in his chair as if this were just another negotiation he planned to win. His attorney flipped through papers, already preparing objections. The first question was simple. Mrs. Morrison, did you willingly give money to your daughter, son-in-law? I agreed to loans, I replied evenly, not theft. Evans scoffed. His lawyer raised a hand to calm him. Do you have written loan agreements? No, I trusted my family. So these were gifts, the attorney concluded. Gifts don't require secrecy, I said, and they don't involve unauthorized account access. My lawyer slid the bank records across the table. IP addresses, dates, amounts. Every withdrawal traced directly to their home. Rachel's face drained of color. Evan's phone vibrated. He glanced down once, then again. His expression changed, confusion giving way to panic. He stood abruptly. I need to take this. Before anyone could respond, the conference room door opened. 2 officers stepped inside. Evan Jenkins, one said calmly, you're under arrest for embezzlement and financial fraud. The room erupted. Rachel screamed. The attorney shouted. Evan stood frozen as the cuffs clicked shut. As they led him away, he looked back at me, not with anger, but with recognition. For the first time, he understood who had truly been in control all along. The deposition was postponed indefinitely. Evan didn't make bail. His mother refused to pay it. His employer filed their own lawsuit. His career ended overnight. A week later, the settlement cleared. $23,000 returned, legal fees paid. The money felt hollow. That night, Rachel called from a blocked number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice broken, exhausted. He's going to prison. I don't have anything left. I don't know what to do. I need my mom. I listened once, then I slept. 2 days later, she showed up at my door. She didn't knock. She sat on the steps, crying. I opened the door and sat beside her, close but not touching. He lied to me, she said flatly, about everything. You believed him when he humiliated me, I replied. She nodded. I know. Silence stretched between us. I lost the house, she continued. I'm filing for bankruptcy. You'll survive, but you won't be rescued. She looked at me startled. You're not going to help? I will not protect you from consequences, I said gently. That's how this started. Tears streamed down her face. I'm weak. No, I corrected. You are avoiding responsibility. There's a difference. She asked if I hated her. I'm hurt, but hate would be easier than this. Before she left, I told her about the trust fund. Her eyes widened. But the conditions are mine, I continued. 2 years, stable work, therapy, independence. She nodded. I understand. And for the first time, I believed her. 6 months passed. My life became quieter and fuller. I joined a women's investment group. I volunteered helping seniors protect themselves from financial abuse. I painted my kitchen yellow and planted a garden. I traveled with friends. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. Evan pleaded guilty. 3 years in prison. Rachel lost everything, then began rebuilding. 2 jobs, therapy, a tiny rented room. Honesty, finally. She wrote me a letter. Not asking for money, not asking for forgiveness, just telling me who she was becoming. I folded it carefully and placed it in my drawer. Some people think love means endless chances. I've learned something different. Love means boundaries. Family doesn't mean surrender. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes the hardest lesson costs everything, but it's the only one that truly sets you free. If you were in my place, would you have chosen peace or chosen yourself?